Brian Daboll may be coaching for his future tonight. We'll discuss that and more here on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Oh, make it make sense. It is your team every day here on Locked On NFL. We thank you for making us your first listen. I don't know why you'd be anywhere else, because we have our finger on the pulse of the National Football League, because we use the local experts from around our network to keep you up to date on everything that's going on. We want to welcome you in and thank you for being an everydayer and making us your first listen. And also, if you're new, we welcome you in. Also, thank you all for listening to Locked On NFL, reminding you that you can follow our show and hear new episodes ad-free daily on Amazon Music. So go check that out. It is Thursday. That means Chris Carter from Locked On Steelers, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, is here to help us go around the National Football League. And since it's Thursday around our network, you know those crossover episodes are out, because Crossover Thursday is sponsored by Prize Picks and presented by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Let me give you a little bit of a roadmap and where we're going. Chris Jones' poor effort and his comments, they just are an oxymoron. Can't talk about things being a fluke when you were walking on the last touchdown play. We'll talk about that. Baker Mayfield has a new weapon. He ain't new to Tampa fans. He's been there 5 weeks, and he already looks like a veteran in Emeka Egbuka. We'll talk about that right in the middle of the show. But we're going to start with a little bit of a preview. It's a little different. We usually do the preview in the last segment. We're going to do the preview early. The Eagles try to get back on track with all of their issues. They play against the Giants, and Brian Daboll is the Giants coach. I think he might be, Chris, coaching maybe his last game.
That's a lot. Last game. I mean, I think there's a lot of things going on with the Giants. I had Daboll as my first coach fired this year. So in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, we always got to do our preseason predictions. Daboll was my first to be fired, though. Mike McDaniel wasn't too far behind him. So there's a few guys there. But, I mean, just they have so much to rebuild right now if you're the Giants. And what you tried with Daboll didn't even remotely work. I think that's the issue, is that, you know, it's different when you got a coach who, you know, when things aren't completely haywire, you're competitive. You're in the mix. But since Daboll's been hired, he took over a 4-13 team, and he deserved a lot of credit. He took him to 9-7-1 his first year, and that was remarkable work. I believe he got Coach of the Year that year. For that. But then since then, he's gone 6-11, 3-14, and now he's 1-4 to start this season, and staring 1-5 in the face with the Eagles playing tonight on Thursday Night Football. Look, they really like this Jackson Dart guy. I think that it'd be tough to say, hey, Jackson Dart, we're going to take the coach that we would try to get you ready for off your plate right away. But maybe if this does happen, maybe it's like, you know what? No, we need to get to the point where he's used to someone that is going to be around for the long haul. But Daboll, he's had his chances. He's had his moments. He's had his investments, and certainly, you know, things like letting Saquon Barkley go, you know, contributed to this when they invested in Daniel Jones the way they did. But I just, by and large, I've just not been impressed by Daboll, and I really do think that, you know, I thought this year was his call-up time. I don't know if tonight will be. I think that tonight would be a little early, but you never know. The NFL, there's new stuff happening every day now.
Yep, Saquon coming back. It's all setting up. The Eagles have been struggling. They can get boat raced. But I got to stop real quick, because the great Patricia Traynor is going to grace us with her presence here from Locked On Giants and tell us what she thinks about this situation.
All right. I'd like to believe in this coaching staff. I don't think they're bad, but the evidence is mounting against them. And quite honestly, I don't know what the answer is with this group. You know, do you fire Brian Daboll? Does that solve anything? I don't know that it does. Especially, you know, given his involvement with Jackson Dart. And now if you say, okay, well, you fire him and you promote Kafka to, you know, the interim head coach. Well, now Kafka's going to have to call plays and be the interim head coach. Is that really the arrangement you want at this point? Or do you just say, all right, you know what? We'll go through this season. We'll hope that we turn it around and we'll address this problem next year.
I understand that concern. Liam Cohen is the head coach and he calls plays. It could happen. And he's the first-time head coach. And Mike Kafka was interviewing for jobs just this time last year. Here's the deal, man. The biggest indictment of Brian Daboll is not anything that's going on in New York right now. It's what's going on in Indianapolis with Daniel Jones.
Yep.
And I know you just mentioned, okay, they reinvested all that money in Daniel Jones. That looked like a bad investment. Are we sure they didn't dump the wrong cargo? Because they dumped Saquon Barkley. A year later, they dumped Daniel Jones. They get the same results, but then those guys go somewhere else and get other results. Daniel Jones is a top 5 MVP candidate right now. I mean, that's a big jump from a guy being a bust to being where he is right now in Indianapolis. And I think that's the biggest indictment of all of them.
The Colts offense is efficient. And he's playing a big part of it. Indiana Jones, he's been the man there so far. And look, it's early. Things could pop off and fall off after people adjust to what they're doing. But by and large, like they are kind of handling it well, and you got to give them credit for that. So I do think that's pretty cool on their part. But again, to your point, it'd be one thing if Daniel Jones went somewhere and was just like, he was okay and it was fine. But he's lighting it up with the Colts, man. And a big part of it is that O-line and Jonathan Taylor make it a lot easier. But you got to give him credit where credit's due, and he's doing a heck of a job.
Doing a heck of a job. Philly, people think the sky is falling. Guys are a little bit unhappy, but I keep telling people everybody's problems ain't the same. That's like a billionaire having a bad day in the stock market compared to James and Florida Evans, having to go buy bad meat from the grocery store downstairs. You know what I'm saying? To everybody else. But Louis here to tell us from Locked On Eagles about could they really trade AJ Brown or could they not?
That championship window, I'm not going to say it would close, but A.J. Brown is a huge reason you're a consistent Super Bowl contender. He's a top 5 reason you've been to 2 Super Bowls in the last 3 years. That will change if he is not on this football team. So they need to figure this out. And contractually speaking, cap-wise, the Eagles would be really hurt on the books if they had to get rid of A.J. Brown.
And if they try to get rid of A.J. Brown, there'd be 30 teams lined up saying, what you want? What do you want? He's that good of a player, man. But he's right. And people are breaking down the all 22 saying these dudes are open. So it's easy to say it was Kellen Moore. He's gone. Now the offense is struggling. But the all 22 might tell you something else that, hey, man, Jalen might be missing some things in the passing game. I know they need to get it fixed because I think this is the type of thing, if it lingers on, it's going to bite him in the butt down the road.
Winning cures all. That's something that I do believe, because I think winning cured the Eagles last year temporarily. Because if you remember, mid-season, there was a point where AJ Brown was feuding and was
reading books. He got a PhD sitting over there, man. You're so angry.
there was so many things going on. Lots of big questions about Nick Sirianni. Can he hold this team together? And then they locked in. They were a very talented team, and they proved that by winning a Super Bowl. And so I think that onus is off them now, right? I think they've they've done it, but I think that now you're sitting here, and if you're Nick Sirianni, it's like, okay, we've won the Super Bowl, but we still have to keep the culture together moving forward. We still have to have a long-term plan here, and I'm not sure that they do have a long-term plan with how they plan to manage this situation.
Yeah, it's rough, man. But like I say, rough for them is paradise to other franchises. We'll talk about the Browns in a little bit. Well, yeah, man. Cleveland these people in Cleveland chop their legs off, man, to have Philly's situation just for a week. I'm telling you, it's just that bad. We'll get to them in a little bit. But first, we're going to talk about Baker Mayfield and his receivers. Everybody was worried about, guys coming back from injuries and whether Mike Evans had any time left. You ain't got to worry about it. They got somebody to replace all of those dudes. We'll talk about that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show sponsored and brought to you by our friends over at Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else as of August of this year, from footwork to breath work. Athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how we craft every model. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather and upholstery. You can make every drive feel like anything but an everyday drive. Smooth handling and intuitive controls is where it's at. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we swear by every detail and sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, here with my man Chris Carter. Chris, we got a little thing brewing this week, man. Pitt comes to see Florida State. I just had to mention that. I just had to mention that a little bit, since we, that's my team and your team. We'll get into it offline a little bit, though. We're going to talk about the Bucs and Baker Mayfield. Speaking of quarterbacks that basically set the template for guys like Daniel Jones and Sam Darnold to have life in another place, Baker Mayfield was the one that started that. And one of the things that these good teams have done that bad teams didn't do is they surround the quarterback with talent, they draft well, they insulate them, and they put them in position to win. And with Chris Godwin coming back from an injury and Mike Evans headed to Canton, people were wondering if they were going to fall off at wide receiver. Well, they took the little McMillan kid out of Washington who had a nice end of the season last year, and you're sitting there looking at the draft like, why would they take another wide receiver? Okay, I'm going to show you why right now. Here's James Yarko.
End of season. Is Emeka Egbuka a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL?
I'm going to say no, only because when Bucky and Mike come back and eventually Jalen McMillan, there will just be too many mouths to feed, right? So I just think that naturally when you bring in more of this talent to the offense, Egbuka is going to lose some targets. Naturally, the ball's going to get spread around to different spots.
Rich people's problems. I'm telling you, how do we spread the wealth? Now, Chris, I will ask you this as a Steelers guy. He was on the board. They needed a wide receiver. Do you get, it's early, man, but do you sit there and go, dang it?
I don't think so. I think it'd be different if like the Steelers were like playing really poorly right now, but they're 3-1, so it's tough to argue. But certainly in the Steelers, there's always, the thing I always look at is that if your team is competitive, there was a lot of there's always like an innumerable amount of decisions that go into how they build that roster, right? You know, from the salaries to the offers to just how things work. And when you're putting a team together, there's going to be some things you sacrifice. No team is without, a player that they've missed on and just be like, dang it, we thought we could get him, but we can't. Or we thought we could afford this guy, but he went somewhere else. And I think that's how I could generally approach it with the Steelers is that when people like, for example, people right now are saying the Steelers are asking, well, should they trade Alex Highsmith for Chris Olave? And I'm like, guys, I know that Chris Olave is the attractive pick to go get at wide receiver right now, but Alex Highsmith is a really good edge rusher. He's been hurt this year, but the whole point of this defense is to get after the quarterback, and him, TJ Watt, and Nick Herbig can be the best outside linebacker rushing trio in the NFL if they're there together, which is, again, the core part of what the Steelers do. So, with that being said, no, I don't think it was really beating themselves up over that. And certainly, yeah, like you look back and you're like, man, could we have gotten like a Yamanor in the fourth round or whatever. But no, I don't think it's that deep.
Pittsburgh's 3-1, correct?
Yes, 3-1.
Much like Jacksonville, who's 4-1 right now. While they're not playing perfect and they got a lot of stuff to clean up, you feel optimistic that Pittsburgh and Jacksonville are going to be fine because they have a bunch of new parts. So you'd rather be going through those growing pains, putting W's in the win column than L's. Speaking of growing pains, it feels like the Cleveland Browns are Benjamin Button. They're getting older, but they ain't getting bigger. In fact, the longer they go, they keep shrinking up the babies and making trades. And this is where Baker Mayfield started out. So we're going to bring all of this stuff together. They made another trade yesterday with my Jacksonville Jaguars, sending Greg Newsome to Jacksonville with a draft pick for Tyson Campbell, who has no ball skills whatsoever. Here's my man Spencer German after he got his dinner interrupted last night.
I always joke about there never being a dull moment with the Cleveland Browns, and it was true again on Wednesday. I was laying in bed, working on some stuff, uploading my crossover show with Chris Carter over at Locked On Steelers. I was uploading that to the channel and getting some stuff done, and then all of a sudden, news comes down. Browns are making a trade. Greg Newsome and a 2026 sixth-round pick to the Jaguars for Tyson Campbell and a 2026 seventh-round pick. And, the wheeling and dealing continues back-to-back days for the Browns. One day after trading Joe Flacco, they trade Greg Newsome. We know that Greg's name has been mentioned in trade rumors for several years now, as we wondered if the Browns would actually be willing to give him an extension. He's now playing outside, which is where he's always wanted to play, and he's been playing really well. Like these first 5 games, he's been really solid.
There you go. Cleveland trading more solid players. Dude, somebody that covers the Browns is like, Browns whip Jacksonville again. Boy, if you don't sit down somewhere, y'all ain't whipping nobody. Y'all been getting dunked on for years publicly in front of everybody, So I don't want to hear that foolishness. I ain't going to trust nothing Cleveland does. Probably until they make a whole bunch of wholesale changes. Although I do believe that the players they've drafted this year look pretty good and their defense is playing a lot better. I think Kevin Stefanski gets a little bit of a bad rap. He had no idea they were trading Joe Flacco. It's just a hot mess down there, man.
It is a hot mess, but it's part of what you deal with, right? That's why organizational integrity matters. As much as people want to make it just about this and that and do all these, like, a lot of it, there are things that are incalculable when it comes to odds, ends, and lines. And that's where I think that the Browns continue to find places where they come up short. And it is historic at this point. I'm not shocked that things have just kind of gone haywire entirely. And then, I'm right with you, man. I think that this is Kevin Stefanski. We talked about this on Locked On Crossover Thursday. Spencer German thought that Kevin Stefanski could be playing for his job in this game, but I don't think he will. I don't think he'll get fired right after the game, even though there's been an inordinate amount of Browns coaches who've been fired after losing to the Steelers. But I don't think that's going to happen after this game. They have a long way to go, and they're still trying to figure some things out.
Yep, trying to figure it out. They're doing it in 4K in front of everybody, and it's rough. And they're also doing it while they're paying a dude like $40-50 million to just not even be around the facility. So until all of that stuff gets ironed out, the Browns will be right where they are. Chris Jones, a couple of years ago, I said Chris Jones was, I still believe, a first ballot Hall of Famer as a defensive tackle. I think there's only 6 or 7 of those guys. I said that he also was approaching GOAT territory with Aaron Donald because of all of the winning. He did not have a GOAT play the other night, and then he didn't have another GOAT moment with the mic in his face. We'll discuss that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. All right, it's all about game time, man. The NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout. It can be absolutely frustrating. And that's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included. You ain't going to have those surprises when you check out to pay and all of those extra costs. Whatever they said it was, that's going to be exactly what it is. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, the promo code, I'll spell it for you, LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. And I got to let you know that today's show is also brought to you and sponsored by our friends over at FanDuel. With the year has already started. In fact, we're right at week 6. The NFL season is, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, that's right, right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets or 300 bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, Put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Make sure you look in on those injuries now. They'll give you accurate information and let you know exactly where everyone stands before you make your wager. And I think that's super, super important and dope that they do that. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Moving and grooving here on the third and final segment on a Thursday with my man, Chris Carter. I don't think the Chiefs are dead. I saw on Monday night they're going to get Rashee Rice back. I believe they're still a very, very good team, and they could be really, really dangerous. I think a lot of people may be jumping the gun on that, but they are doing some things that championship teams usually don't do. You saw Leo Chenal early in the year jumping all over Chris Jones, and everybody was talking about accountability. Well, somebody needs to jump back on him. I don't know if you saw the play on Trevor Lawrence, trip, get up, and he rose up on the third play, Chris, and he scored a touchdown. Chris Jones was walking to the point that people even thought they let him score. That's not true. And then he doubled down on it and said, that was a fluke. Oh, yeah, it was a fluke that they drove 65 yards and scored a touchdown in 1 minute and 30 seconds. A little bit of spilled milk there, if you ask me.
Just a little bit. Look, I do think Chris Jones definitely, didn't bring it all. But I also think that's important. It's an important thing to account for, long games, late in the games. Maybe his energy was exhausted at that point because he'd just been bringing it every play. But I'll tell you this. Cam Hayward, that man, I saw that man once run down Justin Herbert for 50 yards and get him. Yeah. He wouldn't have been standing still. He would have been fighting to get over there. I think that's the thing that Chris Jones has to incorporate into his game more consistently.
Week 6, I think this is the last week they play without Rashee Rice, and he can come back. Here's my man Chris Clark from Locked On Chiefs.
Baltimore win. If Kansas City can find a way to be 3-3 when Rashee Rice comes back, they're going to be in a great position. Now, that's a much taller task after you lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars, but it's still sitting there in front of you. This offense, I think, has shown that it has the ability to attack, and I think that the Lions are going to be down 2 corners, so that could be a huge factor.
They got the fighting, biting kneecaps coming into Kansas City. That's a tough game to be thinking y'all going to win the way you're playing, though.
Yeah, it's a tough game to think that they're going to come away on top with this. But hey, you know what? The Chiefs have overcome so many things to get where they are. Even if they don't overcome this one, it's still like they're still going to be the Chiefs. They're still going to be highly respected. I just think that I think the Chiefs team has won enough that they know the culture. They know what they need there. I think Chris Jones knows that that's not his A effort, but I wouldn't read too much into this just yet, unless him not following through on a play becomes a thing this season, because that's something that absolutely ticks Mike Tomlin off, is when guys don't finish the play, don't stick with it the entire time. It's something he coaches a lot, and that's not what Chris Jones did on that play.
Nope. I'll tell you somebody who is fighting for everything and playing the way you have to play. And they went to Philly and came back from being down 17-3. And this is my weekly apology, not only to Sean Payton, because I said he was going to get fired messing around with Bo Nix, but it is Bo Nix. I am so sorry. And I am going to celebrate Denver, even if it makes me, I ain't got no ego. I was dead wrong about both of them. Here's my man Cody Rourke talking about Bo Nix and his clutch play.
Bo was surgical and he was decisive and he did the things that the Broncos needed him to do. That is what you're talking about as, okay, we've been in these situations, and hopefully you're not in many, right? You don't want the Broncos to be in a situation where they're trailing 20-3 or 17-3, but now against good teams, if you find yourself in that hole, in that situation, this team has shown that they can claw their way out of it.
Denver's good, bro. Defensively,
they're playing well together.
They have an identity. They kind of look like the Steelers a little bit. You know what I'm saying? With the way that they play. Good old blocking and tackling is still the way in the NFL, isn't it?
It is. And I was just talking to Mike Tomlin about that for his stuff. But no, I'm right with you. Like, this is this Broncos defense has been very impressive. They get after you. Nick Bonito is just on fire when you look at his numbers. But yeah, as the season goes on, I'll be interested to see how the numbers continue to pan out. But like, right now the Texans are giving up 12.2 points per game. Like that's pretty nuts. It's also the Texans are giving up 12.2, but the Broncos are giving up 16.8. Excuse me, I was working my way to the Broncos, but both of those defenses are pretty nuts. But I think the thing is that the Broncos' hang-ups on offense aren't as big as the Texans right now, and so the Broncos have put themselves in that category.
Texans are doing enough to be winning games, but yet and still their record still is indicative, and that's because the offensive line stinks and they can't score any points. Real quick update on the NFC or the AFC North. I want to ask you this as someone who covers the Steelers. Are you still weary? Are you weary of putting a headstone on the Baltimore Ravens because they still are the Ravens, right?
Oh, listen. There's nobody doing that.
Okay, I want to know.
Yeah, I actually asked Juan Thornhill about that, and he's like, guys, we know that the Ravens are coming back. Like, they're super hurt up right now. Not only are they missing Lamar, they're missing Roquan Smith, they're missing Marlon Humphrey, they're missing Nnamdi Asomugha, what's his name? Madubuike, almost gone Asamoah. But they're missing so many starters. Like there's only so much that next man up can do, and even when they do those things, it's very temporary. So if I'm the Steelers and I've gotten the sense from being in their locker room pretty much every day this week, I look at this and I say, this is you do not have the liberty of relaxing because you see the Baltimore Ravens soft start. This needs to be a kick down the door situation. If they're going to finish 1-5 after this week, after they play the Rams, you got to be 5-1 after your next two games, so you can have that clear 4-game lead with 2 games still against him, and then a tougher half to the season, but one that you can manage.
Like my man Omar said, or I think it was Prop Joe on the wire, you need to let sleeping dogs lie. Don't be poking the bear, because what will happen is they'll get it together and finish 9-8, and they'll be a 7 seed, right? Which means they play number 2.
Yep.
And that is a game that nobody would want if they just rallied off 4 games in a row and everybody's healthy. That's the last thing you want to see if you're the 2 seed.
Yep.
So you gotta always make sure, don't count them dead, don't count them out until they're gone. Tomorrow's game or tonight's game will be previewed in the morning by Tyler Rowland on Locked On NFL in the AM, and we'll swing back by here in the barbershop and get you ready and primed up for the weekend with my man Matt Williamson. That's twice a day on Locked On NFL. Make sure you tap in wherever you get your podcast. It is always fun to be with my man Chris, but we got to say goodbye. He has work to do, and so do I, but we're not going to say it without letting you know that these 28 minutes have been really, really fun, and we don't take y'all for granted. Thank you for joining us here on Locked On NFL.